This is Dr. Kurt Johnson, the host of The Convergence on VoiceAmerica. And we're here continuing our discussion from episode 9 on peace and conscious activism. And our host for that episode was Philip Hellmich, the director of peace at Shift Network, who's with us here today. And we're also joined by David Kirshbaum, who's one of the principal people in the peace work at the United Nations in the NGO community, and Avon Mattison, who's a founder and leader of Pathways to Peace. And what we're going to talk about in this segment is where they see peace work going. We've been talking about a lot of the things that everyone is doing, but if we're really serious about this work and its goal, we have to talk about the things that are needed for the future, new emphases, innovations, and so on. So that's what we'll center on. So I'm going to start having David open us up on that topic. So David, take it away.
Yeah, very negative forces dominate the news. But when you work at the UN, you see such humongous scale of coalitions of NGOs working with, huge businesses and with countries and members of missions on such a huge scale. It really gives me hope that maybe those negative forces, even though they dominate the mainstream media, they're not really dominating the world, And I see so many convergences of all sorts of peace work and everyone working together, and such excellent use of all these advanced communication technologies. I really think that maybe we can be optimistic that we're really going to create a world peace.
Avon, how about yourself?
Oh my goodness, I follow on with what you've just said, David. I'm so deeply aware of what has been happening at the United Nations. For example, the last conference was by over 8,000 organizations in March, of extreme diversity, representing such diverse activities that humanity is involved with, having to do with the most marginalized people. And what I'm very aware of, specifically with the fallout that is occurring right now within just the United States, with this current administration, there's a very anti-UN kind of focus. And the recent election in France, connected with, this disassembling of that which is moving forward, bringing more cooperation amongst nations, to bringing greater awareness about the great good that is occurring at the United Nations, particularly within civil society. This information needs to be grounded in specific action that everyone can take. So what I see being very, very important is getting involved with as many organizations as you can and supporting them that are civil society NGO organizations. For instance, there are various calls that you can make to local representatives and to national representatives about different aspects supporting the votes about not exiting from the Paris Agreement on climate change in the United States, as an example, about supporting different UN agendas, and getting much more understanding and education about how one can be involved directly with the SDGs, which gives that local global connection, the personal planetary connection, a very significant where you can actually make a significant difference, no matter how small you think you are as an individual in terms of what you can contribute to peace, to building a culture of peace. You are a peace builder by whatever action you take. And right now is the time that we have all called together to do our common concerted action in whatever way we possibly can to building peace in our own locales and also on a global basis and a national basis. And there are so many opportunities, as you've heard from both Philip and also from David. And so this would just be but I would say a call to concerted action, because acting in concert, we do make a difference, a significant one, as I said before, in changing the course of history. And I would like to just add something a little bit more philosophical to what that has to do with what's called for in the future, is that we are called to understanding that we are global citizens first and foremost. And when we understand that each of us, no matter what religion or nationality or whatever label we use for one another, that we are all connected as one humanity, and that we have a responsibility to whatever we're involved with, to making certain that we work across lines that ordinarily separate us, so that we can build greater cooperation in our own lives and take action where it matters, both locally, as I said, but also connecting it with the global aspect of what we're doing in this context with the SDGs, or whatever way in which each of you is called to do, because this is the time where so much is beginning to go backwards that has been built for so many decades and for so long, not only connected with the quality of life of our planet, but also the quality of our life as human beings and for future generations. So it's a call to awareness and a call to concerted action.
Yeah, great, Avon. That's great. And I want to apologize for a moment because of New York background noise. I didn't realize I was on mute. So that little break. Thanks, Philip, for calling on Avon. My mouth was moving, but there was no sound. Now I know that Philip's going to have a lot to add here, because actually Philip and I just wrote a chapter for a new book coming out on peace work, and a lot of that was about the types of initiatives and emphases and modalities that we thought were going to be important in the future, particularly this linking of ancient wisdom, modern science, and then everything that's getting rolled into peace building. So actually our chapter was about partnerships in the peace building process. So Philip.
Yeah, well, first I just want to say I'm just really inspired with what David's sharing with Avon. I mean, every time I'm with Avon, I feel I'm listening to one of the beautiful essences and elders in this community. And Avon, I know you're young at Spirit, but you've got decades of experience. I just always love hearing this perspective. And it's funny when thinking about the future. I love, Avon, what you're saying. It's a time of awareness and concerted action. It's a time of really identifying as global citizens, moving beyond our individual identities. I'm also, thinking about the future, I have to say, this last trip to India, being on the bank of the Ganges, interviewing swamis, and I was asking them what they thought about the global situation, all the chaos. I've just come from the U.S., but it's all this concern and fear. And each one of them would say, it's all guided by a natural intelligence. And your task is to get into such a place of stillness where you will know right action from that place of stillness. And so when I think about, my mind can't really comprehend all the strategies that would be needed to create peace on the earth. And when I sit back and reflect about all the different efforts that I've seen emerging, that's in the World Peace Library, what Dave is talking about, Avon's about, there is so much emerging from the hearts and souls of people, of really practical ways to promote peace. It's outrageous, the amount of positive that's happening. And yes, there's a lot of negative that's coming up to force it. So for the people who are concerned, taking the time to really deepen your own personal practice, to really anchor yourself, and then really from, Andrew Harvey would say, follow your heartbreak. What is it that really breaks your heart, and then bring that inner awareness into action? There's so many ways to get involved. And for some people, it will be directly with the SDGs. For other people, it'll be working on human trafficking. For other people, it'll be working with their local school, to reduce bullying. So all of us have a ways, and if we can tap into this deeper awareness, and again, scientific research is starting to document that we go into these deep, still places, it activates parts of our brains that expands our sense of identity beyond ourselves. It opens our capacity for compassion. So when we take that, then that peace impulse, which is just really just manifesting around the world, is going to guide us. Now, with that said, some of the things that really excite me, everything about the United Nations excites me, that Avon talked about. And if there's some other things, and that David, there's other things that excite me too. I love the work that David mentioned about the U.S. Institute for Economics and Peace, measuring the global peace impacts, global peace index. They're really taking peace to a scientific level, and they're really well respected now. They're measuring the economic impact of lack of peace, like over $13 trillion a year. So there's that initiative to really ground peace into language there. Another initiative that excites me is the fact that we're seeing Rotary International really entertaining the idea of making peace the next priority after polio. There's a lot of people inside of Rotary who are talking about this is a peace building organization. They've got 34,000 chapters around the world. So we're seeing more and more of these infrastructure pieces with the United Nations, potentially Rotary, with the Global Peace Index really starting. The other thing that really excites me is starting to look at creating peace as a new norm. Again, a broader understanding of peace. And some of the most innovative work that I've seen is with UCLA. It's the Global Media Center for Social Impact. Sandra DeCastro-Buffington, we were in India together, and they have a technology of helping introduce into Hollywood scripts of major TV programs of content that has positive social impact. And she's starting to look more and more about how to introduce, what is some of the neuroscience of inner peace? What is the positive impact of meditation? What are some of the issues around social justice? They've already doing work on human trafficking. So I think as we see some of these mainstream institutions, and that work that she's doing in Hollywood, Bollywood could be replicated in Bollywood and other media centers. So I think as this peace impulse emerges through all of our individual unique expressions, and institutions start to really, bring it in stronger with schools, more and more schools bringing in peace studies and mindfulness programs. And then if we can look at this next layer of really influencing mainstream media to have stories, positive stories, then I think we can look at a new norm. When Sandra was with us in Washington, D.C., and she said the new norm that she would like to see is that the sexy, young, dynamic person on TV is a samurai of self-awareness who's doing social good, and I don't think we're that far away from it. I think we're maybe 3 to 5 years out from that potential. So I know that's a lot all over the place, but those are some of the initiatives that really excite me. So to come back to it, let's all do our self-awareness practices. Let's let the spirit of peace express through us uniquely in the ways that are meaningful for us. Get engaged, take meaningful action, and be aware that we're part of this larger impulse of peace.
Now that's exciting, and I'm going to move to David now. I just wanted to note that everyone was using that phrase, global citizen. And what's interesting about this year, in the week of the International Peace Day, is also Global Citizen Week. If everybody Googles global citizens, you'll see it's a huge, basically secular and more millennial-based worldwide movement, 8 million people. They're going to be doing a week of events in New York, and of course the 11 Days of Unity and everything that goes on at the UN around the International Peace Days that same week. So it's highly likely, though I can't let the cat out of the bag, that there's going to be major cooperation now between those nexus. And that's so important because it goes back to something David Sloan Wilson said on this program. He's the scientist who's the big flagship carrier for the altruism movement in science, that this nexus now of secular activism and sacred activism joining on ethical, moral, and idealistic principles for what we do together. The narratives are secondary. The question is what we do together for the pro-social good, to use their term. And this is an exciting development. So, David, tell us some of the things that you're excited about.
Well, there last I've read, there was 1.2 billion NGOs across this world to get involved with. There are NGOs in every part of the world working on every issue. There's so much opportunity. And these NGOs are filled with wonderful people that are all inspired and who are all full of ideas and idealism and creativity. So I just like following up on what Philip said, get involved. Like, work, of course, on your own inner peace, but then match that with the outer action of getting involved with NGOs in your area on all different scales, all different issues. And it leads, and this involvement leads to a very meaningful, fulfilling life.
Amen. So, Avon, what do you have to say on that?
Amen. Ditto. Absolutely. I would say that a common action that everyone can take is to get involved with the International Day of Peace as an annual, because it's an annual highlight of what we've done the past year, individually, collectively, on all levels, along our own unique way of building a culture of peace, of being a peace builder, and then marking on that day what we need to do to recommit as a society, as an individual, globally, at every level, to another year of building peace along our diverse pathways. And that is, of course, September 21st that we've been referring to, but it also connects with the whole week around Peace Day, and then the whole month is called Culture of Peace Month. So I would say that is something in common that people can do. And I would like to just sum up something, because I want to honor some of those that's come before. And this is a quote from Nicholas Roerich, who tried to have a peace pact that was signed by all nations to prevent, between World War I and II, to prevent any further wars. And I think it's pertinent for my closing remark is to quote him: "Positive creativeness is the fundamental quality of the human spirit. Let us all welcome those who, surmounting personal difficulties and all diversities, propel their spirits to the task of peace building, thus ensuring a radiant future."
Well, that brought a silence across all of us, and that actually says something in itself. So, Philip and David, what would you like to say as we kind of move on out of this discussion and look forward to further discussions and co-working in the future?
David?
Go ahead, Phil.
Avon, I love that quote, and thank you. It's just like, I just invite people to really bring peace home into their own heart, and to really, peace is accessible. I mean, it's in our own hearts. I mean, all the ancient traditions have said this. And then just to look at extending that in your own personal relationships, in your families, with your neighbors, really taking the time to stop and recognize the dignity of the other person. I recently met Donna Hicks, who is up at Harvard, has been working on major peace building things around the world. And she noticed that one of the major problems and conflicts is that people really do not even just recognize the dignity of one another. And so the work that she's been doing, she's worked with Colombia in the peace process. She's worked with Desmond Tutu in Northern Ireland. She's working with seventh graders. She's working with corporate consultants. It's just really inviting people to slow down and just recognize the dignity of one another. I mean, we can get busy taking action. It's really the presence we bring into the actions that we're taking. And so whoever we're with and whoever we're working with, that we can really, take the time to foster our own experience of inner peace. Be gentle with ourselves when we get triggered and come back. If you need tools, heart math is wonderful tools, mindfulness, yoga, meditation, there's plenty of tools. And then when you're with people, if you need communication tools, look at nonviolent communication or Rita Marie Johnson. And then the key part is just when you're present with someone, just really look them in the eye and recognize their humanity and recognize the divinity that's in them, and just watch how your human relationships start to shift. So as you're starting to go out and take action, really slow down and focus on the presence that you're bringing to the actions. And also notice how trust really starts to build when you start to really recognize each other's dignity. start with dignity with yourself, your own dignity as a human spirit, dignity with the others, and then dignity, as Donna Hicks would say, was something greater than, whatever you want to call it, spirit, divine, whatever. And peace is actually joyous and fun. And so that's all I have to say for now. And Kurt, again, I want to thank you for hosting this, inviting us. And Avon, just thank you for your tireless, joyous service and presence you bring. And David, it's a real delight to meet you. I'm looking forward to more collaborations with you.
Absolutely.
All right, David, we'll give you the last word, and then I'll say a few things, and we'll continue on our way.
So, I love thinking about the global scale of things, the huge scale of thousands and thousands of people and organizations working across the world on peace and cooperating and partnering. And it's just really beautiful. But I also think I just feel how the importance of coming back to ourselves, our inner selves, and becoming aware of what's in ourselves and becoming in touch with our potential and the depth of our heart. And I'm really aware that, in our growing up in the West, where the schooling, helps. There's nothing about this in our schooling. But to know that there's incredible resources now to turn to make up for that lack in our schooling, incredible books to read and films and people to interact with, to really gain understanding of our own potential and to really help us get back in touch with ourselves. And then the match of that inner work and inner experience of our own potential and our own heart and consciousness, and then to match that with work on the outside, it's like that can really lead to an incredible life.
All right, thank you so much. So everyone, you've been listening to several segments of discussion on peace and social activism on the Convergence on Voice America, a continuation of our episode 9, which you can actually access at onegod.com/convergence. That's numeral 1god.com/convergence. And Philip Hellmich, who was with us today, was our host on that program with James O'Dea and Emily Hine. So the last thing I just want to mention is that in 1945-46, when the UN was founded, Hans Kung made the statement that there can be no peace among the nations until there is peace among the religions. And so this whole idea of how inner peace moves then to the wider peace is so germane to this discussion. And Ken Wilber, who framed the Convergence in episode 1, if you look at his video on YouTube, right now it's called Integral Spirituality, over 75,000 views, and a good reason. He really, again, made this so clear that what's important is not your narrative, not your philosophy, not your religion or not your nation, but your developmental level. And that's a matter of the heart and the matter of how you care for others. And as all of us just said, how you recognize the divinity and the ultimate integrity in every person. So his discussion of what's involved in us challenging, particularly the wisdom traditions, to move people up that behavioral developmental ladder is so important. And you'll see that the subtitle for the Convergence is Uniting the Tribes, and there are lots of kinds of tribes, national tribes, scientific paradigms, religions, subcultures, go on and on and on. So that's what the whole discussion's about. So I want to thank everybody. I want to particularly thank Philip and David and Avon for being with us here today, and we really look forward to another chance to talk to you three and join in with some others. So thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. Lots of love, everybody.
Okay, much love.